Hey everybody, it's Adam here with the Pattaya News, once again coming to you in one of our weekly news recaps. But last week we talked to you about the waterfront condo, and it got thousands of views and a lot of commentary. And so this week I actually wanted to do kind of a similar one topic news related issue. And what we're going to talk about this week is the fact that the gates have been opened and the Chinese are coming back to Thailand. But what does this mean for you? And what exactly am I talking about the gates being open? Well, before we get into that, we'd also like to let you know, for those of you who watch us on a regular basis, that this weekend in Pattaya, there is an event taking place. It's called Pattaya's Music on the Beach, and it will involve marching bands that will be right near the Central Mall on Pattaya Beach, and will be a great opportunity for you to go down and see local high school marching bands up and down Pattaya Beach Road, as well as competing with each other in a battle of the bands. And of course, it's free admission. If you have a chance, it's both Friday and Saturday this week from 3 o'clock until 6 o'clock on Pattaya Beach. So feel free to check that out. Now, let's go into our story. So obviously there's a new Thai government, and we've talked a lot about elections and how that's worked for the past couple of weeks. And we have a new Thai Prime Minister, Srettha Thavisin. Srettha Thavisin, for those of you who are not familiar with him, he comes not from a political background, but a business background, and he understands how important tourism is to Thailand. So he said his first focus is really to boost tourism. So there were multiple markets that they were looking at: the Chinese market, the Indian market, the Russian market, and interestingly, the Kazakhstan. I might not be pronouncing that right, but the Kazakhstani market. Now, those four markets have all had some reasons that they're not here. One of the biggest is the fact that Thailand has more visa restrictions on those countries for various reasons, according to Thai immigration, about concerns about illegal businesses or concerns about people coming on overstay. So here's the good news, especially if you're Chinese. As of yesterday, the brand new Thai cabinet had their first meeting. And one of the first things they did, besides lower electrical prices, by the way, so hey expats, those of you watching me, all two of you, you may see your electric bill go down. Yes, really, they dropped it. Not stunningly so, but enough that you should see a difference. Anyways, the other thing that they did, besides electrical prices, is that they have initiated a visa waiver for Chinese nationals. So that means, like many Western nations, the Chinese can come in now. Hello, here's my passport. Hello, sir. Have a good day. Welcome to Thailand. Without having to do what they had to do previously, which required trips to the consulates, paying money, all sorts of paperwork. This will take place from September 25th until February of next year for about, 5-ish months in total. Now, when this news came out, we've seen a variety of comments, some concerned about the traffic issues in the city. For instance, currently they're working on Pattaya Beach Road, and it's down to one lane during the week as they're resurfacing. That's only temporary, of course. Some people concerned about the package tour groups, and other people concerned about possible criminals and etc. So I'm going to sort a couple things out for you. Number one, just because the Chinese can come back in on a waiver on September 25th doesn't mean you're going to magically see hundreds of thousands of people back in town. The Tourism Authority agrees with this. In fact, they only anticipate about 50% of the visitors, even with this visa waiver, as opposed to before COVID in 2019. Why, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. Very simple. The flights are not available yet. And also, right now in China, for a Chinese citizen to get a passport, that process is still very complex because of security reasons, from what China says. So, and a lot of people's passports, by the way, expired in China during COVID. So people need new passports, and that whole process is backed up in China. So because of that, you're not going to see very many Chinese in immediately. After some time, perhaps. Now, what they're hoping is just that it brings more Chinese into the country. Now, the people that brought up, well, what about illegal Chinese businesses, all the news that we've covered on a regular basis of Chinese call centers and Chinese, there was just one yesterday, a Chinese man being arrested for 5.6 billion, yes, billion baht of fraud in his home country. Well, according to the Tourism Authority of Thailand, they're going to be screening visitors selectively, especially those ones at risk, to make sure that nobody comes in on illegal businesses. Will that happen? We'll see. Number two is, as we said, you're not going to see all these Chinese pour in right away. It's really meant to help a lot of businesses that are helped by Chinese tourists. One of those, by the way, is the floating market. We'll put in some footage in the background here, which last week, actually the evening after we did our last video about the waterfront, there was a tragic fire that broke out at the market and destroyed about 30% of the market, which of course is an extremely popular Chinese attraction. Now, with this visa waiver coming up and Chinese coming back, which, by the way, the first week of October is also a golden week in China, so there will be more people than usual there, especially with the waiver. Of course, the floating market was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? There were some people online that were actually anticipating that the floating market fire, which luckily didn't kill anybody and only caused one minor injury, could still shut the market down for months. Didn't happen. It reopened on Tuesday of this week after only 5 days. The majority of the market is still open for business, 70%. 30% was burned, and they're working on repairing that. I thought I'd throw that in there since we're talking about tourism. But it's attractions like the floating market that mostly focus on Asian tourists that will really benefit from this Chinese visa waiver. Now, right now, the Thai government has decided not to give a waiver to Russians or to Indians, so they will need to go through their regular processes that they currently do. They didn't really give a particular reason why. However, they've also given a waiver, interestingly, to Kazakhstan, which they say is the biggest growing tourism base in Phuket. Not so much here in Pattaya, but in Phuket. So that's just something we found interesting too. So as this visa waiver comes in and as Chinese come back to Thailand, kind of wrapping this all together, what does that mean for Pattaya for the next 3 months? Well, high season, according to the Thai government, really starts to begin in the end of October, early November. In reality, high season is really the weeks around Christmas and New Year's and Songkran, but in terms of people starting to come back. Now, we're going to put in some footage that we've taken this week when we're looking at the construction and what's taking place in and around Walking Street. A lot of businesses are getting ready for what they hope will be a terrific high season. I want to hear your comments. Do you think it's going to be a good high season? The Tourism Authority, especially under a brand new tourism minister, has been a lot more realistic than the past tourism ministers. She's admitted that although this waiver will help, like I said, the Chinese aren't going to all pour back at once. And number two, that flight prices, especially from Europe, are pretty high. So they're a little bit cautious about whether or not people are going to pour in. Yes, they do expect a lot of Indian tourists, even without the waiver. And by the way, as you see in the footage, some of these brand new clubs being constructed on Walking Street are yet another, I know you're excited, Indian nightclub on Walking Street. In reality, though, and especially with our own friends and partners at Janet Nightclub, these clubs have driven huge audiences and bring in a lot of customers. And we expect this to continue in the near future as well. So, looking at high season overall and looking at where it's going to be, I'm cautiously optimistic that Pattaya is going to do well. Now, the last thing I want to touch on about high season and talking about Chinese visa waivers and stuff is the fact that will all this road construction that I mentioned earlier that's currently taking place, will it be done? Well, according to the Pattaya mayor, they state that everything has to be done by the end of October. That's the date lines they've given to the contractors. Now, when they say done, in reality, and being realistic again, I don't necessarily anticipate everything being finished, but I do anticipate them stopping it, especially once those tour buses full of Chinese come back. I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of insight into the Chinese visa waiver, why it's happening, what's taking place, and what I really want to hear, and we're going to cover in future weeks, is your thoughts. Is it going to be a good high season? What does Pattaya need to have a good high season? What, in your opinion, demographic of customers should Pattaya and the Tourism Authority focus on? Are the Chinese and giving them a visa waiver a good idea? You tell me.